Welcome back to our Steven. I'm your host, Steven, and actually, did you know that's spelled with a V? And today we have some crazy Karen stories. From the operating room to Disneyland, we'll get into these Karens in a bit, but first, she got mad I wouldn't work for her. I was shopping in a department store. I was literally only there to buy a pair of socks before class. I happened to be standing near some smaller items, likely marketed as stocking stuffers or other holiday things. A woman who looked to be about 68 or so walks over and sees the Floam kit near me and goes, "Oh, I don't like those. They get all sticky on my hands." I'm looking for a toy for my grandson. I politely look at her and say, "Oh, I don't work here." The death glare this woman gave me. I'm not sure if she was upset that I wasn't working there, or if she was upset that I didn't go out of my way to be her personal shopper as I had responsibilities and commitments. She then walks over to another random person dressed in black, the store uniform, and gives the exact same speech. It wasn't just making small talk. Lady was looking for an employee and got mad. Did OP write this story and expect me to glance over the fact that they name-dropped Floam? I know it's irrelevant, but I just gotta say I haven't heard Floam since like 2007. Deathland's Muty left a comment on the post saying, "I might be giving her too much credit, but maybe she was hoping for advice?" I remember one time I thought I was going to have my own I don't work here moment when this guy approached me in a store I was Christmas shopping for my daughter at and goes, "Excuse me?" But then instead of asking if I worked there, he asked something I wasn't expecting at all. "Are you a mom?" I guess he saw all the toys in my cart and took a gamble. He was a younger dude who had become a father relatively recently and wanted an experienced mom's advice on age-appropriate gifts for a 1-month-old because he had no clue what to get. Our next story is entitled "Woman Thinks That I'm Her Manservant." I was in a supermarket walking in an aisle when a middle-aged woman asked me if I worked there. I replied that I didn't and moved on. She then yells at me from behind that she just wants something down from the top shelf and that if I had a heart, I would help her. "Lady, you could have just asked." I walk over to her to help. She grimaces and mutters under her breath about how hard it is to get help these days. Instead of, be glad or at the very least be remotely positive that someone's bothering to help her out. I ignore this and ask what she needed help getting down. She points at a display pack containing cards of stain-removing pens above the shelf, which, by their placement, indicated that they were part of the inventory, not meant for sale at that particular moment. I then look around, and there are literally dozens of it hung on 2 adjacent wire hooks right in front of us. When I point this out to her, she snaps at me and says in a rapid fire, "I'm not blind. I don't want those. Can't you just do what I asked? It's not a big deal." I roll my eyes and oblige. I picked out the first card from the display pack and give it to her. Now, I'm a tall guy, but not that tall, so I neither see nor realize that it could have been covered in black dust up there. It was, and my hand is soiled from merely touching it as if it were from an oil spill. She makes a face and hands me the item back, saying again that, "I don't want this one. Can't you grab one from the back?" I then proceeded to do just that, like a pushover, but stop halfway when she adds, "And do it away from me so I don't breathe this filth in." I let out a sigh, dust off my hands, and tell the lady to do it herself before walking away. So I'll admit I am a little bit of a pushover sometimes. I don't want to be yelled at, but in a situation like that, if it's just a Karen yelling at me, I'm just going to grab my card or whatever I'm doing and just leave. Forget that. Spatula left a comment on the post saying, "As I'm about 6 feet 2 inches, 187 centimeters, it happens somewhat frequently that someone of lesser height will ask me for help getting an item down from a high shelf. And if they ask nicely, I'm only too happy to help. But come at me with a nasty attitude? Nope. We need to stop indulging people who don't know how to act." Lisa Beth replied, "Oh my god, I'm like short as heck, and it never fails that the item on my list is on the top shelf and I can't reach or find another item to knock it down with." I treasure the tall people that have helped me out in those situations. There are a ton of excuse me, thank yous, and other words of appreciation from me. I try to pay it forward by knowing the store layouts and helping confused people find the less known items. And speaking of finding the less known items, I've been trying to find something myself lately. If anybody out there could help me find the like and subscribe buttons down below, I would be hugely appreciative. Our next story is, some guy storms up to me and says, "I need extra towels in 402 right now." I was waiting in the lobby of a hotel for a friend to come down. I was wearing black pants, a white button-up, and holding my phone. Pretty standard outfit. Some guy storms up to me and says, "I need extra towels in 402 right now." I smiled and said, "Sorry, I don't work here." He narrowed his eyes, looked me up and down and said, "Then why are you standing behind the desk?" Because the desk was just a high counter table with chairs. I was literally scrolling Instagram. I stood up, showed him my backpack and said, "Because it's a chair, not your personal helpline." He huffed, went to the actual front desk where the staff were wearing navy blazers with name tags, and loudly complained about your employee ignoring me. The front desk clerk looked at him, looked at me, and said, "Sir, she doesn't work here. And even if she did, snapping at people isn't how you get towels." Best part, his wife walked up behind him, smacked his arm, and said, "You're embarrassing me again." I don't want to be too controversial or anything, but how many times does OP have to embarrass his wife before it's enough? I can only speak for myself, but if the person I was dating was the kind of person that just walked up to somebody who looked the part, accosted them and said, "I need towels right now," and then never even apologized afterwards, I probably wouldn't want to be with them for too much longer. Fatso Wombat left a comment saying, "Certainly, sir. I'll get that done for you right away. Enjoy your stay. Actually, let me comp the whole minibar. It is now free for you to consume it freely." Our next story is the day my shirt got me yelled at in a supermarket. Some memories just stick. This one is from 20 plus years ago when I was standing in a supermarket, completely absorbed in the products on a shelf. In her defense, I was wearing a checked shirt, so horrendous it could have been part of the store's official uniform. Suddenly, a woman in her 50s walked up to me and asked, "Where's the flour?" I pointed vaguely and said, "I think I saw some down that way." She pressed on, "What aisle is that?" "Maybe aisle 8? I'm not sure," I replied, still smiling and trying to be helpful. I thought this was just a simple exchange, but things took a turn. Her voice rose as she snapped, "If you don't know, then who does know?" The fog in my brain cleared and I finally understood. She thought I was an employee. I just stared at her for a moment, the confusion written all over my face. "I don't know," I said, "and I don't work here." The look of pure shock and embarrassment on her face was a moment I'll treasure forever. It was also the last time I wore that horrible shirt. You know, I was gonna say, this kind of thing is exactly why stores should make sure they go out of their way to make it super clear and obvious where things are. But then I think I remembered hearing something about, don't stores regularly change the location of stuff in the aisles because they want people to be confused and looking up and down aisles and potentially buy things that they weren't going there for? I don't know, maybe that was just a wacko conspiracy theory thing I heard. CT Varlin left a comment saying, "Why is the main character almost every time a middle to upper age woman? Usually above the aisles is written with what's on both sides, but you should have learned to read and wear your glasses." Our next story is, one time at Kroger, I got yelled at. One time, I went to Kroger at like midnight, had a blue jacket on from work I just got off, and it didn't say anything related to Kroger on it. I was walking down an aisle with my headphones in, and I keep hearing this guy screaming behind me from down the aisle. So I take my buds out and he's screaming, "The freak, can you help me?" And I just keep walking because I ain't work there. So finally I just scream back, "I don't work here." And he yells back, "Stupid butt, insert slur here. All you had to do was freaking say that." Inserts more slurs. Like crap, I didn't have to say anything. Anyway, unrelated, but about once a month, someone thinks I'm working somewhere, probably because of my fanny pack. Like, this is just some gateway for someone to think, wow, that dude is a worker. Like, come on. Can I just take a moment to freeze and get a survey here? When is the last time you saw an honest-to-God fanny pack in the wild? And I'm not talking some like weird fashion statement thing like The Rock in that 90s photo. I'm talking somebody out there with the fanny pack and they've got the granola bars and the tissues and whatever you need in there. Dragon Crystal left a comment saying, reminds me of a weird incident where my mom had to make a quick stop at Menards and told me to keep an eye on the cart until she comes back. So I noticed the scented candles nearby and pushed the cart over to see the scents they had for sale. As I was smelling, I believe it was pumpkin spice latte, I noticed a man was watching me and I thought he was also trying to see the scent too. So I adjusted the cart to let him see the candles and he says, I'm waiting for you to be done getting high off those candles. Note, I'm wearing all black because I just finished work myself, but nothing that says Menards. I just stated, I don't work here. He said, sure, that's what you told me last time. Stop slacking off and get to work. Last time I was there was nearly 6 months ago, and again, it was for a quick stop for a doorknob. But again, I didn't work there, and I told him, okay, if you think I work here, ask that employee behind you to confirm if I'm an employee or not. They said no, and he rumbled about how he knows I'm an employee, but is just faking it to not have to work. Some people need to pull their heads out of their butts and stop smelling the dinkness of their BS. Our next story is, spoiled woman insists I let her skip the line. In New York City nightlife, bouncers at large bars are usually black men. Fitting that demographic, drunk strangers somewhat frequently assume I am security. Usually it's somewhat funny, like people handing me their ID if I'm anywhere near the door, or asking where the bathroom is while I'm clearly dancing with friends. One evening in my early 20s, I was on the Lower East Side chatting with friends while waiting in a long line for a popular bar. A woman in her late 20s who I had never met walks up from the street, interrupts our conversation, and states, "You're the bouncer who said I could skip the line." "No, that wasn't me," I respond politely while trying to turn back to my friends. We were nowhere near the front. "Yes, it was you. You said I could skip the line," she insists, drawing the attention of others in line. Uncharacteristically, I snap back, "It wasn't me, so get to the back of the line." The small crowd within earshot stifles their laughs as the lady slinks to the back of the line around the block. My question is, where is the confusion here? Did they just assume OP is a bouncer and that OP would just give them permission to go in? Or could this have been a situation where she did get approval from someone before that they could go in? You know, some places do have the, "Oh, you're a woman, you get to go in right away" kind of thing. I mean, could you imagine if it was a situation where that Karen just thought all black people looked alike? Lasta left a comment saying, "It's interesting. I'm not black, tall, or muscular. I'm actually pretty skinny and frail looking, yet something about my vibe makes everyone in venues think I'm security. I get a lot of 'sorry, sirs,' also spot on, almost always. All the bouncers are black, all the kitchen staff and barbacks are Latino, and all the bartenders and ticket checkers are mostly white. This one is the most flexible ethnicity-wise. I can't imagine if my vibe was combined with being a tall black guy. I've used my powers as is to get people to stop being annoying as freak on the dance floor. Stop taking flash photos on super dark dance floors and crap." Our next story is, Wild Karen gets mad at me for the state fair's doves actually being pigeons. This happened 2 years ago now and just came back up on my Facebook memories, and so I thought I would share it with all of you. I have officially run into my first Wild Karen this week at our state fair. Every year, they do a daily dove release once a day. They hand out doves, and then they count down to 1, and we all release them. The birds then fly home a few miles away, and they have to recatch all the birds and do it all again the next day. I've always loved this event, and I've gotten to do it a couple of times in the past, but I've never had a partner to go to the fair with. It made this year really special to me. Luna, my partner, had promised that we would stay until the release so she could get a video of me releasing these beautiful birds into the air. Being excited, we went about 10 minutes early and were chatting with the birds owners and just enjoying getting to look at the birds close up and learning about them. Well, he told us these weren't really doves, they just call them that because it sounds better. They're really pigeons. Closely related to doves, they do the same thing, but people respond better. And boy was he right. At some point, a Karen came up and had heard that they were pigeons, and oh my god, you would swear someone tried to end her. Now, keep in mind, this is a thing you don't have to do. It's just a fun, educational, beautiful activity you can do if you want to. Somehow, her being angry that these are pigeons caused her to turn on me? I'm still confused over what I did to attract her ire. Karen was angry that they weren't doves. She just kept ranting this dribble at me. I can't believe these aren't really pigeons. Junk like that. Mind you, almost all of the birds were pure white, and only a couple were a bit different. Needless to say, when the guy we'd been chatting with handed me the most pigeon-looking pigeon I've ever seen, I thought she was gonna die. It did look like I just walked up to one on the street and picked it up. I was thrilled. My bird was beautiful, as were all the birds. I truly believe he knew that I would love any of the birds and chose me for that one on purpose. Luna did get a fantastic picture of me joyfully holding my beautiful bird, and I'm so thankful to her for it. I've wanted a picture of me holding one for years. We had been standing nearish an obviously challenged kid and his mother. I was enjoying his nervous excitement over the birds. It was adorable. The birds can be a bit of a challenge to hang on to if you're not holding it correctly. The people passing out always show you how to do it, but not everyone manages to keep a hold of their birds. Of course, at one point, Karen also made some rude comments in my direction about him not being able to hold onto his bird. Like, lady, neither could you. You lost yours less than 30 seconds in and chuckled over them being hard to hold. I'm not a confrontational person, so I just did my best to ignore this lady, but at one point in her complaining, I told her, "Look, I'm not the expert here. Talk to those in charge." And she responded with, "Clearly you are. You said you do this every year." I couldn't even respond. I wish I had said something like, "Girl, that is not what I said at all. What I'd really said was that they do this every year, and I try to get to this event any year I make it to the fair." I believe this was only my third, maybe fourth time ever doing this, as most years I just simply don't make it to the fair. Because Karen would not shut up, we both missed the countdown, and next thing we know, the birds are flying away. Needless to say, there's no video from us of the event. Unfortunately, I am still working on the standing up for myself thing. I wish I'd been able to tell her those things and more. So much more. Like, shut up. If anyone has a good way of shutting down a random wild Karen, let me know, because apparently no one is immune to their stupidity. Sadly, this subreddit doesn't allow pictures. I was going to post the pigeons picture. Honestly, I gotta admit, I'm kind of disappointed. I would have liked to have seen the pigeons picture. Honestly, I think what I enjoyed the most about this story is honestly OP's just sheer excitement and love for the birds. I actually have a friend who's kind of similar like that, and especially with parrots. And honestly, I think it's just kind of adorable. Steampunk Explorer left a comment saying, "The best way I found to deal with a bully is usually to just relax your face and maintain eye contact without saying anything for the first few seconds. The blank stare intimidates people, especially if they're trying to intimidate you. When and if I engage verbally, I stay calm, keep it detached, and don't accept blame for things outside my control. Don't argue, don't try to intimidate, but stop and quietly observe, then say something calm to redirect them. Treat them like something between an interesting bug and a bratty toddler. I also set clear boundaries. Please stop yelling at me, for instance, and use, okay, well, I'm going to walk away now when people refuse to respect them. And then I do it. The important thing is to not give them the reaction they're after, so that instead of feeling powerful and getting that reward signal in their brains, they're forced to see themselves alone throwing a tantrum in public. Don't react, just let them embarrass themselves. Anyway, I'm pretty sure doves and pigeons are the same thing." Our next story is, "Blue shirt at Walmart? Must be management, so I'll hit him with my cart. I was in a blue shirt, tan tie, and nice tan slacks, and had to stop at Walmart to buy a router for a little office I was helping start up. Lady comes around the corner and stops. I move up as I'm trying to get out of the way but also find the router I need, but she doesn't go past and keeps inching her cart at me until it bumps me. I turned around and looked at her, confused, and she snaps, "Well, aren't you going to help me or what?" Still confused, I'm like, "Sorry, what now?" So she repeated it, even more upset and gesturing to the other customers to show me up. So now I've got 4 angry-looking middle-aged people glaring at me when I said, "I don't work here, lady." She looks confused but doesn't let up and questions me again. "I don't work here. I was trying to buy something when you nudged me with your cart." It was like I had thrown water on her. Her 3 comrades quickly moved on, and she was like, "Well, you're in a blue shirt, so I don't know what you thought I was supposed to think." Yep, my fault for wearing a blue shirt to Walmart. You know, a long time ago after class, I'd been wearing a blue and black striped polo and I still had my school lanyard identification badge on. I was in a Dollar General and somebody walked up to me and said, "Do you guys sell doorknobs?" I was just standing there like, what? Until I realized I had the lanyard on that had my name and photo and whatnot. I was like, "Oh, sorry, I don't work here." The guy just walked off though, didn't have any accosting going on. My faltered ego left a comment saying, "I ran into Home Depot once just to grab some light bulbs while wearing a long-sleeved flannel shirt and jeans to Home Depot." No exaggeration, I got stopped 8 times by customers asking me for DIY help or suggestions. I'm an urban city slicker. My DIY knowledge literally begins and ends with changing light bulbs. Our next story is, I met my first Karen. At least I think she qualifies for one. I, 28-year-old female, was shopping in a grocery store. While crouching down like a goblin in order to find the mouthwash I was searching, it was my third store looking for it, a woman approached me. Kind of. She flew past me and spat out, "I'm looking for gloves." Me, dumbfounded, replied, okay. She huffed and puffed to the end of the aisle when she stopped and looked at me like I was the sole reason for anything that ever went wrong in her life. She glared, then, once I looked back, she hissed, "They sure as heck aren't there," while making a wibbly-wobbly hand motion. Me, slowly getting that she thinks I'm an employee, said, "I know." She finally looks at me. The usual employees here, yellow shirt, name tag. Me, all black in a band shirt, heavily tattooed, slightly ticked, and she said, "You don't even work here?" As if I stole her time. I replied, "Clearly not." She waved again, mumbled something, and stormed off. I was equally fascinated and annoyed. My first ever Karen in the wild. Also kind of shocked because what do you mean you're actually so impolite to people who are simply trying to earn a living? The only woman I saw working was at the cash register. I calmly and slowly got my stuff on there and paid and talked to her for a moment. She was really sweet and younger than me. I wanted to warn her about the old hog back there. Think upper middle class, stuck in the 80s, wrinkled face. So I told her that there's a very impolite lady searching for gloves, and if she wanted, she could maybe go there in a few minutes. It took her a moment before there was that smirk, indicating she knew exactly what I meant. She then said that, of course, she would help her. As soon as she finished the inventory list for the whole frozen section. Felt good. I hope that sure as heck already retired relic had to wait a long time. Here's the thing, should OP really be all that shocked if they couldn't take the time to understand that somebody in completely wrong clothes doesn't work at a place? Why would they ever be the kind of person to have consideration for another person? Frankly, as far as I'm concerned, a person like that is lucky that they managed to put their own shoes on and make it to the store in the first place. They likely gave a license to that person. That person can vote. That's what concerns me the most, not whether or not they treat employees well enough. Gilly Kelsey left a comment saying, "People actually speak to and treat retail workers like that all the time, unfortunately. I can't tell you how many times people have shouted just the item they're looking for at my back while still walking by me. Like I'm a robot that can tell you where it is in 2 seconds after you just scared me and interrupted what I was doing. I quit retail for now, thank God, but thank you for warning the cashier. No matter how crappy your day might be or whatever you're dealing with. Y'all, please remember to speak to retail workers like actual humans, not robots or slaves. You don't know what they're dealing with or what they have to go home to. I've seen some coworkers almost go home and end things after bad customer interactions because it was just the straw that broke the camel's back." Our next story is, Karen can't comprehend I don't work in the OR. I think this kind of fits here. We'll see. I work for a level 1 trauma center doing sterile processing. Level 1 trauma centers handle literally everything and they never close at any point. Sterile processing is a department that exists in every hospital and handles the cleaning, repacking, and sterilization of all reusable instrumentation for anything, from trivial clinic procedures to massive multi-hour-long surgical operations. Hospitals literally cannot function without it. Given that the largest volume of instrumentation comes from the OR, the operating room, the department is typically located either directly above, below, or beside the OR, so that when rooms need extra instrumentation delivered, the response time isn't that high. This department also never closes, so we each have to work 1 weekend a month and at least 1 holiday a year. I try to work all the holidays because I don't care that much and I get double time and a half to do it. One weekend I was working. The cases that come to the OR on weekends are typically emergent cases for patients who came down from the ER. I was coming back from break and had to pass by some family consultation rooms as they were directly between my department and the cafeteria. One thing to note is that in SPD, we wear the exact same scrubs that the OR wears. They're all laundered in the hospital so as to not introduce outside microorganisms into the surgical environment. So it's understandable that I can get occasionally confused for staff that might work directly in the OR. Anyways, this man who looked extremely nervous emerged from one of the rooms and flagged me down. I took a moment to respond to him because I'd had my earbuds in blasting some dangerously loud punk rock. I said, "Can I help you?" The entitled guy replied, "Yes, I want to know where my wife is. She's been in surgery for over an hour and I haven't heard anything." I replied, I'm not sure. I'm sure they'll come get you when they have news." The guy replies, "Well, why can't you tell me anything?" I tell him, "I don't even work in the OR. I don't know who you or your wife is, and even if I did." He cut me off and he began to raise his voice. He said, "Her name is so-and-so, and you need to go find out an update now." I replied, "Sir, don't raise your voice at me. I told you I don't work in the OR. I can't help you." The entitled guy replied, "Yes, you do. You're wearing the same uniform." I say, "No, I work in sterile processing. I have to get back to work." I turn around to go and leave, but as I'm walking away, I feel a vice grip on my arm. I turn around to see him try to tell me not to walk away from him, but I start yelling first. "Yo, what the freak? Get your freaking hand off me!" As this was happening, one of the nurses from the OR rounds the corner to see this guy grabbing me and getting into a screaming match with me. I don't remember how long this actually took because I was hopped up on adrenaline ready to fight this guy, but she had ran upstairs to the security office to grab one of the public safety officers and came back with several of them in tow. They managed to create some space between us and ended up placing us in different rooms. I fill them in on my version of events. I can hear the other guy screaming incoherently from the other room. One of the officers steps out when I'm told I can finally head back to my department to fill out an incident report. I see the entitled guy getting carted off in cuffs. I made it back to my department and notified the charge person of what had happened and that I needed to fill out an incident report, which I did. From what I've gathered, assault is a horribly common occurrence for healthcare workers in patient-facing settings. I understand that being in the hospital can be emotionally overwhelming and stressful, but that's never an excuse to assault a healthcare worker. Some people. OP posted an update saying, "Wow, okay, this got way more popular than I expected it to." So, some housekeeping. This was my first experience like this, so I was definitely not well practiced in de-escalation techniques, so I do intend on brushing up on that. Sorry I misspelled HIPAA, Reddit. I'll turn myself into the nearest moderator so that I may be executed. What else? Oh, I guess people often assume healthcare worker posts are made by women because it's a female-dominated field. I am, in fact, a man. I don't know, we'll update more if more questions commonly come up. Update the second. Wow, the comments got locked. That's hilarious. So I spoke with the educator, and there happens to be some de-escalation courses offered at the hospital I can click in for on my day off tomorrow and get overtime for. So I'll be doing that. My heart bleeds for that guy's wife. I haven't heard any updates, but I'm sure she woke up from surgery with the news that her husband wouldn't be at her side that night, which freaking sucks. I do kind of feel bad for the husband. I'm sure he was incredibly stressed out because of his situation. I just wish he had better control of his emotions. This is the first time I've dealt with this, so I have no idea what happens next. We'll keep y'all informed. I mean, I don't want to be too nosy and, of course, HIPAA and all that, but I kind of want to know what the wife was in there for. I kind of want to find out, did everything work out okay? What did the guy go to jail for, or did they get charges? All the stuff that it would be nice if OP could update us on, but they just would never get that information. Curious Kyrus left a comment saying, I'm genuinely delighted to hear tales of how hospitals are taking assault of healthcare workers very, very seriously. No one should have to go to work with war. They may be harmed, but in dangerous fields, at least you're warned, prepared, and compensated for the risks you take. In healthcare, for far too long, that's been an unspoken side effect of the field. It warms me to know that your facility is putting your welfare first. On the flip side, however, you may want to take one of the de-escalation courses that are generally offered. Sometimes you can't do anything to make it better, but a quick, this is not my department, but let me go get you someone who can tell you more, might have had you back from break on time with less paperwork and just a phone call to the OR to pass on that a husband is anxious for an update. Working in a place where people are experiencing some of the worst days of their lives means learning to say comforting words even when you can't directly help. No one should ever lay hands on you though. Full stop. The OP of the post replied saying, I do plan on asking the educator about de-escalation courses the hospital provides tomorrow. This was my first experience in the 5 years I've been working in healthcare between two hospitals. So I was definitely caught off guard because I'm not used to interacting with the general public outside of directing people to elevators or the cafeteria during my short walks through the halls. Our next story is, please put those back in my cart. Last week, I was shopping for a church youth party at a very popular dollar establishment that seems to be everywhere on God's green earth. I was buying supplies to make handmade ornaments because the kids at church love this annual party of making their own ornaments for friends, family, and church members. It's always a lot of fun. The dollar store in question always has these plain, clear bulbs you can fill with paint, glitter, snow, literally anything, and the kids always run out of those. So I basically fill a cart with some extras. This old lady walks up, reaches into my cart, takes 2 bulbs, and starts asking what they are. I take out my earbud to not be rude and also because I was listening to a really distracting podcast and knew I wouldn't be able to process words while listening to that to tell her what it is. I tell her about the youth party and how great these little bulbs are to have, how excited the kids get making their own winter scenes and masterpieces, make small talk, etc. She then exclaims how cool that would be to do with her grandbabies and their youth group at her church and starts counting on her fingers, naming kids and counting bulbs. As she does this, she keeps grabbing from my cart and I'm just aghast like, what are you doing, lady? Finally, I say, ma'am? And she ignores me. So I finally put my body between her and my cart and say, ma'am, I'm happy you like the idea, but I put them in my cart to buy for my children and their friends at church. Can I please have those back, as I intend to purchase them? She said, oh, I thought you worked here and were stocking the shelves. We weren't even where those items were. We were standing near the gift wrapping supplies, and I laughed and said, nope. Mind you, I was wearing my Grinchy teacher shirt and jeans from teaching at the high school nearby, and not all of the colors of the workers there. She then says, maybe I could still take a few? And I said, if you would like to buy some of your own, I will gladly show you where they are, but no, those are spoken for. Thanks. And it was the most awkward thing ever, watching her decide if she was going to put the stuff back or just walk away. I was prepared to get an employee or something, but she put it all back in, and I got as far away from her as possible. Didn't even apologize for taking stuff out of someone else's cart or nothing. Love her heart. I wonder what super cool, awesome podcast OP was listening to. Couldn't be one that starts with an R and ends in Steven? In all seriousness, I think what I love the most about this story is OP's Christian love at the very end. Love her heart. Just, ooh, bless that Karen. And also, I remember as a kid, I went to church, and I can't remember if it was like an Easter-y thing or just like a summer event, but I remember they had these bottles and they had all of this like colored sand and glitter and stuff, and they would let you kind of make your own container, and it was a pretty cool thing, so I can imagine it would be a big hit. If anybody knows what I'm babbling about, it kind of felt like the real-life version of that old-school Flash game where you had all of this like different colored sand and materials and you could set it on fire, except we didn't set anything on fire, of course. Our next story is entitled Male Karen, Keith, shut down at pharmacy. Just saw a very entitled man get shut down by two other guys at my local pharmacy counter. It was satisfying and glorious. The usual pharmacy drive-thru is closed down. This happens when they're understaffed and you have to go in. There's a long line at the pharmacy with a very frazzled tech behind the counter. They have an electronic kiosk to let you check in and then text you when you're next, plus they have a big electronic board with your first 3 initials or last 3 or 4 of your phone number to show your status. As it was my turn to check in, a very self-important man wearing sunglasses indoors with a little dog on a leash, no dogs allowed in this store by the way, tries to outmaneuver me to cut in front of me at the kiosk. Nope, I basically leap in front of the screen. The entitled guy was slowed down by his little dog. Then we're all patiently waiting except entitled guy. Everyone's being really nice to the pharmacy tech as it's clear he's swamped and overwhelmed. Except entitled guy. Entitled guy keeps sighing, pacing, muttering under his breath. Doesn't look sick or anything, like he needed something urgently. Just looks like a jerk. Finally, entitled guy leans in over a good guy at the counter who waited in line, was called as next, and was paying for his meds. The entitled guy kept motioning to the tech, waving his hand, with small dog in tow and sunglasses on. "Excuse me, I just have a quick question." The good guy at the counter says to him, "Relax and wait your turn. Everyone's waiting their turn." The entitled guy gets really huffy and says, "But I just have a quick question. I shouldn't have to wait." The handsome good guy tells him to back off and wait. Can't you see that they're swamped? The entitled guy keeps explaining why he's more important than everyone else. The extremely gorgeous, broad-shouldered, handsome man at the counter tells him to freak off. He kept getting more handsome the longer he pushed back against the entitled guy. Another guy waiting in line then tells the exceptionally attractive superhero good guy, "Good job, man. You're setting a great example for your son," who was standing next to him. The pharmacist starts screaming at this point at everyone to settle down as they're short-staffed and it's only him working. The cute superhero gets his stuff and leaves, with people telling him good job on his way out. The entitled guy stands there for a few minutes longer, then turns to leave. His over-applied cologne wafting after him as he walks away in disgrace. It was glorious. Anybody out there have any theories of what this guy was going to be asking for? Guessing based on the sunglasses, he was probably hungover, right? My guess is he was probably there trying to see if he could find out if he could get like extra strength Tylenol or something. You know, because that kind of person isn't smart enough to realize Tylenol is Tylenol. If you want extra, you just take an extra pill or two. Just make sure you understand your dosage. Maleficent N's Curse left a comment saying, "You're not royalty or the King of England. You will wait in line to be patient just like everyone else does. Now get to the back of the freaking line." OP replied, "Exactly, he checked in right after I did, despite his efforts to cut the line there as well. I only ended up waiting about 10 minutes or so total. He just had to chill out for a reasonable amount of time, but no. He felt his time was more valuable than everyone else's. You could feel his contempt emanating from him in waves. He seemed disdainful of everything and everyone around him, and when he spoke, he spat out the words condescendingly, booing him. Fortunately, the hot hero shut him down." Our next story is The Karen My Husband Deals With. I've been with my husband almost 6 years now, and we recently married. His ex had told him that she had a boyfriend and wanted a divorce, and shortly after, he met me, and she went crazy, threatening him with restraining orders because she claimed he was abusive. She did everything to make him miserable, and he was never abusive. He's been working in the local grocery store around a year. He's the lead in the department he works at. Recently, he's seen his ex, but doesn't really interact with her, except asking if she needs any help, which he's required to do. She usually ignores him. Twice in the past month, she's made complaints to his boss. First, they had a product on sale and it was gone. She complained he wouldn't go in the back and get her more. There was none in the back. Second was the same thing. She grabbed the last of a product on sale and asked him if there was any more. He told her, "Sorry, that's the last one you grabbed," and she asked again, "Is there more in the back?" He said nope. She again complained to his boss that he wouldn't get her any from the back. Finally, the boss says, "If my lead says that there is no more, then we're out. There is no more." His boss knows who she is. My husband has explained to him who she is. He's not at risk of losing his job. He's been polite and professional this whole time, but she's making him miserable every time she interacts with him. It's been almost 6 years and she just won't stop, and she's still with her affair partner. Anybody else think the course of action here would be to get some kind of signed incident report or something from the manager? Basically, the goal being work towards something where it could be actionable if it keeps happening. She keeps showing up there, she keeps trying to get him fired, keeps trying to put his livelihood in jeopardy. If it happened a couple more times and you have 4 different incident reports of this Karen flipping out trying to get this guy in trouble, combined with the past history, you could maybe build a case off of that, right? Parody TX left a comment saying, "Not a lawyer. If she is intentionally filing complaints with his boss with the intention to get him fired, reprimanded, disciplined, despite several times being told there's no issue, you may have grounds to get a restraining order. You may have to see a lawyer to get this done. Or if his boss likes hubby more than the ex, they can simply ban her from the store." This next story is a very demanding Karen at the Chinese takeaway shop I work at. I work in a Chinese/Vietnamese takeaway shop. The other day, a woman came in and I was kind of shocked at how much she expected from us. So we have a hot display case with meats and rice, and after about 2 p.m. every day, we pack it up in a few takeaway containers and mark it down. So by 6:30, when this Karen came in, these meals are admittedly not very fresh, just kept warm. But that's why they're discounted, you know? Well, this was the conversation. The Karen said, "Last time I bought one of these, I went home and the rice was no good." I reply, "So sorry to hear that. I agree that they aren't as fresh as they were at lunch. That's why they're marked down." The Karen replies, "Well, I want to buy this marked down meal, but you need to make sure the rice is fresh." I said, "I'm sorry, but I can't do that. If you'd like, you can order fresh food from the kitchen." The Karen replied, "But I want this one. You just need to make sure it's fresh." I replied, "Like I said, I can't guarantee ultimate freshness because it is left over from lunchtime. You also don't have to buy it." The Karen replied, "Fine, I'll buy it, but if I get home and it's not fresh, then I'm never coming back." I reply, "Okay, sure thing." Kinda crazy. Here's another conversation. A Karen says, "I'd like the laksa noodle soup, but you need to make sure there's enough soup, because last time there wasn't enough." My colleague said, "Oh, so would you like less noodles or toppings to make it more balanced out?" Karen said, "No, don't take anything out, just add more soup." My colleague said, "Sure, we can do that." We just made it like normal, because we always fill our dishes to the brim, so we couldn't add more soup even if we wanted to. She also seemed annoyed that myself and my colleague weren't Chinese because she asked in a really judging way if we cooked. We said we just serve and make banh mi's. She seemed somewhat satisfied when she found out that we didn't cook the food. She kept asking about lots of menu items in a really rude and judging way, and she said, "I'm just making sure that things are being made properly because I'm Asian and I know how to cook." I'm thinking, congrats? She also seemed happier after I mentioned that my boss and the chef were Chinese. But if you can cook so well, why are you coming here and hating everything? We are admittedly a little crappy Chinese takeout place that is nowhere near authentic anyway. Anyway, that was this Karen at my store the other day. Not as bad as a lot of other stuff on here, but still pretty funny in my opinion. Thanks for reading. Edit to add, some people have expressed concern about the safety of the food the lady in the story bought. The food that she bought would have been safe because I know when they were put down to a lower temperature and it was still within the 4-hour window when she bought them. However, I have found out that my store has not been following some proper safety practices and have since raised these concerns. They're being handled by my local council. I actually quit my job a day ago due to poor management and unfair working conditions. I feel very guilty about not realizing sooner about the food safety, but I wasn't given any training on the subject. Thanks again, everyone. To be fair to OP, I can't imagine most places that are, I guess, as established as a inauthentic Chinese place would necessarily be the place that would train you on like proper food safety protocols. I will say though, that's why whenever I order at like a deli or whatnot, I never like pick up the in-store stuff, I always call ahead. I'll be honest in saying that I'm an absolute sucker for the fried chicken my local grocery deli makes, and they put out boxes pretty much all day, but unless you catch it at the right time, you kind of almost always want to call in a custom order, even if like the chefs hate you for it, because likely they've been sitting there for an hour or two. Thing is, I'm not gonna Karen out over it. Old Class left a comment saying, in certain Asian cultures, haggling is commonplace, including just downright insulting a trader's goods. A Japanese friend, where it's not common, told me his sister moved to China and he visited her. They went to the market and she's yelling at this woman how her vegetables have deformations and to discount her. The stall keeper is shouting back, it's because they're so organic and natural, full price. And my friend is like, what? Who are you and what have you done with my sister? In either of the countries my parents have come from, I would ban a customer for life over an interaction like that. But some places, it's just a part of life. A Chinese woman in a Chinese-owned business might justifiably assume she's in a home away from home. Our next story is Karen-y fried chicken. This story took place when I was working in a very famous chain chicken restaurant while in college. It was a very busy Friday night with a lobby full of people waiting to order, a drive-through line that wrapped around the building, and a full dining room. Enter the Karen. She ordered a large family-sized bucket of chicken with all the typical containers of sides, such as mashed potatoes and biscuits, etc. She ordered the whole lot to go, took her bags, got in her car, and drove away. Normally, that would be the end of the interaction, but sadly, this was only the beginning. About an hour later, the restaurant's phone rang and I, being the shift supervisor, answered the phone. It's the large meal Karen on the other end of the phone. She immediately launched into a shrieking tirade about how her food was ice cold and soggy when she got home. I quickly apologized for her inconvenience and offered her a coupon for a discount on her next purchase. I foolishly thought that the problem had been solved, but there was so much more to come. Jump ahead to the very next Friday night, the exact same chain of events occurs with large meal Karen. She came in, ordered her feast, took her bags, got in her car, and drove away. An hour later, she called the restaurant for the second busy Friday in a row to keep an employee tied up on the phone with her cussing rant. Her food was cold and soggy. She demands compensation. She wants to talk to the owner, blah blah. For the second week in a row, I apologize for the inconvenience and offer her a discount on her next visit. Problem solved again. But this time, I informed the store manager about the ongoing drama with this lady. Wait for it. The very next Friday, for the third week in a row, our large meal Karen returned. As soon as I saw her walk into the lobby, I got my store manager to come up front and wait on her. She was prattling on about the disappointing service and poor quality before it was even her turn at the register. She ordered her usual haul, got her discount from the previous week, took her bag, and drove away. You guessed it, the restaurant's phone rung over an hour later, and it's cold chicken Karen. She wants to talk to the manager. She wants gas money. She wants free food. She wants firstborn children, yada yada. She screeched at me that, once again, her food was ice cold when she got home. You idiots don't know how to pack food. This happens every time. As I'm trying to apologize to her and calm her down, she screamed in my ear that I'm too stupid and she wants the real boss. I passed the phone to the store manager, who lets her foam at the mouth and rant for what seemed like an eternity. Once Karen was out of breath and my boss could get a word in, he asked her one simple question. "Ma'am, where do you live?" Karen replied with the name of her town like it was no big deal. My boss looked simultaneously shocked and ticked off. Then he loudly said, "Ma'am, That town is over 1 hour's drive from this building, and it's an absolutely ridiculous expectation to think that your food would be perfectly hot when you get home. You cannot possibly think that you're going to transport hot food for over an hour in below freezing winter temperatures and it's still going to be hot. This idiotic Karen was not having it. She demanded more free food, gas money, and coupons. I could hear her howler monkey screeches as my boss held the phone away from his ear. Then he went nuclear. He raised his voice right back at her and told her, absolutely none of that will be happening, and furthermore, we will not tolerate any more of this disruption to our business every week. Consider yourself permanently banned from this location. If you come back, we will refuse to serve you, call the police, and have you removed from the property. Then, he slammed the phone down right in her face as she continued to screech on the other end. Luckily for us, she must have found another place to get her Friday night feast. We never saw her again after that. Thank all the chicken gods. So I'll be honest, I do live in a place that isn't like the most accessible. Like I probably have to go at least 10 to 15 minutes out of my way if I wanted to get a Friday night feast somewhere. I really have to wonder where it is that Karen lived that they would have to go an hour's drive away to get, what, KFC? I mean, this is giving me some like real Wyoming energy here or something. Penster1 left a comment saying, we had someone complain that her delivered pizza was burnt. This is from a conveyor oven. Every pizza gets exactly 5 minutes through the oven. The manager gives her a coupon for a free pizza. The second time, with the free pizza, complains again and receives another free pizza. The third time, he explained to her that he personally inspects the pizza before it leaves and that there really is no way for it to get burned. This isn't good enough for her. He explains that they obviously cannot make her pizza correctly, so she can stop ordering from them. She got fired from being a customer and was asked not to return. Our next story is Wild Karens in the Jungle. My family loves to travel. We try to go somewhere together at least once a year. Grandparents, parents, kids, everyone. A couple of years ago, my mom and I started planning a trip to Belize, somewhere she's wanted to go for a long time. Shortly thereafter, she got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Throughout treatment, planning this trip kept her going, an amazing experience she would get to have at the end. A once-in-a-lifetime thing. We went this past spring and did all the things my mom wanted to do. We snorkeled the Blue Hole, saw Mayan ruins, went cave tubing, but only at places that could accommodate my mom. The last leg of our trip, we stayed at a remote lodge in the middle of a 500,000+ acres of wildlife preserve. It's famous for bird watching and big cat sightings, including jaguars, jaguarundis, ocelots, and pumas. They offered guided night and early morning walks, since those are the best time to see the cats. It's small groups, only for everyone's safety, and there's paperwork. That worked well for my mom because she has to go slowly and can't keep up with big groups. The first day we got there, we scheduled a night walk for our family. We had enough people that the group was full. During dinner, the activities coordinator came by and gave us the details for the walk. What to wear, bring, where and when to meet. Some tipsy women at the table next to us overheard and told him they wanted to come along. He explained that they only had one guide for tonight and that the group was full, plus paperwork, and offered them a walk the following night. He also told them the cost, cause this stuff ain't free. They pushed, but he kept saying no. He finally left and we thought that was the end of it. Of course not. We show up at the place in time, only to discover the drunk Karens from the next table wearing our equipment and chatting with our guide. They had shown up first, claimed that they had booked the tour, and taken over. We're normally pretty chill people. We travel a lot. We've seen some crazy things. Oh my god, but this was over the top. They absolutely hijacked something special we had planned for my mom. Things got a little heated since they had been told no, hadn't done the paperwork or paid, but wouldn't leave. The poor guide had no idea what was going on, the activities coordinator was nowhere to be found, and the kitchen staff had to go and find the property manager to sort everything out. Since they refused to leave, we got a different guide but only had half the equipment we needed. The women were loud because they were drunk, so our guide tried to avoid running into them on the trails, but no one saw any big cats that night. We did end up seeing a puma a couple of nights later, after those women had left. Even the cats couldn't abide them. Seriously though, who messes with an obvious cancer patient? I'll admit, I am somebody that is pretty reserved, pretty quiet, especially around strangers, especially around a bunch of drunk women I don't know. This would be one of those times where I would be going nuclear. I think this is a situation where even at the risk of getting ourselves kicked off of that trip, I would want to be so confrontational about it. I mean, these people have no soul at all. I mean, these Karens give so little of a crap about the fellow person that realistically I would probably be saying some pretty vile things about how they don't deserve anything. I need to move on from this, but this is one story that genuinely, really aggravated me. Our next story is, Karen accused me of cutting the line at Disneyland, but the cast member proved her wrong in front of everyone. So I recently spent a full week at Disneyland with my family. Everything was awesome. The cast members were amazing, although there were definitely a couple of odd Disney adults, and this is where it gets fun. First, I should say that I am sincerely the most walkover person there is. If someone has a problem with me, I usually just let it go and walk away. I never stand up for myself. It's a horrible trait for sure. Well, this time, I finally did something about it. It was the last day of our trip and our first time ever going during a seasonal event for Halloween. Our last visit had been 11 years ago, so I wanted to make sure everyone had the best time. One of my mom's biggest wishes was to meet Jack Skellington and take a photo with him. We had tried so hard, but with the little ones, it was nearly impossible. On Wednesday, I had my baby with me and we had just finished Pirates of the Caribbean for the third time in a row. I saw Jack walking by and checked the app. Sure enough, he was scheduled for a photo op in 20 minutes. I thought, heck yes. I called my mom, who was in Toontown with the other kids, and told her to head over. It would be a 10 to 15 minute walk to get to the area behind Pirates, so I said, no biggie, I'll get in line. I got to the line and spoke with a cast member, who I'll call Abby. She was super sweet, blonde, with her hair in a braid. I asked her if this was the line for Jack, and she said yes, but I would need to leave my stroller by the fence a few feet away. No problem. I grabbed my sleeping baby and got in line. I was standing behind two ladies who were chatting with each other and occasionally with Abby. Wanting to make sure that I wasn't breaking any rules, I asked Abby, is it okay if I wait in line for my family who will be taking the photo? She said, absolutely. As long as one person is holding the spot, when you approach the door, your family can all walk up. Perfect. I didn't want the line to look longer and cause the meetup to close early, since there could be 9 of us taking a photo. At that point, Abby told us it would be about a 30-minute wait. I was, at the time, the last person in line. A woman who I'll call Karen walked up and asked Abby about the line. Abby told her that yes, this was Jack's line, and also told her to park her double stroller where I had parked mine. An older man stood behind me, and she got behind him. This is important. I was hyper aware of my surroundings because I knew I would have to describe everything I saw around me for my mom to reach me. A few minutes later, the two ladies ahead of me left. I stepped into their spot, now behind a family of 3, a father, mother, and daughter. I'll call them the nosy family. My mom texted that she was close and needed help finding me. I FaceTimed her for 2 or 3 minutes, and because the line wrapped around a column, I had my back turned for a bit. When I turned back, I was behind the nosy family again. This is where the fun begins. Karen suddenly stepped out and loudly called me as a line jumper. Excuse me, were you in line? Because I don't remember seeing you behind this family. She was 2 spots behind me, and there was also an older man standing behind me. I calmly but firmly said, I've been standing in line this whole time. She turned to the older man and said, was she in front of you? Was she? Because I remember you standing behind this family. He didn't want to get involved and just shrugged without sticking up for the fact that I had been in front of him. Whatever. I said again, like I said, I've been here the entire time. Go ask the attendant. Karen stopped for a moment, but I could tell she wasn't done. I brushed it off and laughed about it when my sister Jay came up while my mom was parked with the little ones. I told my sister that I had just been accused of cutting and laughed at how ridiculous it was. But Karen decided to escalate. She brought over another cast member who I'll call Tracy. Tracy had the attitude of someone who just wanted to get this over with and not deal with adults acting up. Karen pointed at me, talking loudly, saying I jumped the line. My sister, who is confrontational and loves to argue when she knows she's right, jumped in and started going back and forth with Karen and Tracy. Tracy suggested I step out of line. Both my sister and I immediately said no. My sister added, "Fine. Even if we can't join her in line, she can stay in her spot." At this point, people were pointing, murmuring, and the nosy family was speaking in Spanish, saying I wasn't behind them. My mom was still confused about what was happening, so I called her again as the line moved forward. I asked my 9-year-old niece to stand with me because I felt so embarrassed by all the pointing. I spoke in Spanish, knowing Karen and the nosy family would hear, and told my mom, "Don't worry, I can see the attendant I spoke with earlier, and I'll make sure to talk to her because I know she remembers me." The nosy family kept staring at me, making my niece even more uncomfortable. I reassured her to ignore it. Finally, the nosy family was at the front and I was right behind them. I reached out to Abby. "Hi, sorry, I hope you remember me from earlier when I kept bugging you." She smiled and said, "Of course, yes. Once you're up, your family can walk up here." The nosy mom immediately cut in. "Well, she actually skipped the line because she wasn't behind us." Karen jumped back into the conversation too. "Yes, she actually skipped the line." Abby looked at me, then at them, and said firmly, "No, I spoke with her earlier. She's been here the entire time. I remember her." My sister then told the nosy family, "What does it matter to you anyway? You're ahead of her. This only affects people behind you, so stay out of it." They immediately went quiet. Then Tracy suddenly tried to jump back in and accuse me again. Abby doubled down. "No, I spoke with her. I walked her to the line myself. She has been here for the past 30 minutes. Karen, the nosy family, and Tracy all went quiet after that. Abby even leaned in to talk to my baby who had just woken up and said, "Oh, he's finally awake? I bet he's excited to meet Jack." I finally called my mom over and we all got our photos. It felt so good and I made sure everyone in line could hear it. It felt amazing to stand my ground for once. I couldn't stop relishing in it. I hope that Abby knows how much I appreciated her in that moment. I wish I could remember her name. If anyone happens to know someone there who matches that description, tell her thank you. Update, here's the screenshot of the text I sent my mom. Sorry in advance to the people caught in the photo. This was before the lady at the bottom and her friend left. As you can see in the photo, the family was in front of her. It feels good to be right. Here's the thing that really confuses me here is what's the big deal? If this Karen and the nosy family's petitioning managed to win and OP was ultimately pushed back to the line a few spots, what's the big outcome? OP's going to be pushed to the back of the line? Oh no, OP has to wait 5 more minutes. Karen is flipping out over nothing. How long does it take to get a photo opportunity? It's not like you're up there for a conversation. They don't talk. What does this Karen need to do so badly that they can't wait the 5 minutes for the other people that were in front of them to take that photo? They need to wrap that photo opportunity with Jack Skellington up so fast so, what, they could manage to leave 5 minutes earlier to wait in another 30+ minute long line? I really showed it to that girl and her 9-year-old niece. Now I'm 5 minutes earlier to waiting another hour to ride Space Mountain. I feel like it's kind of the same thing where it's clearly very busy traffic and some moron screeches right past you just to barely cut you off. Congrats, you've gotten 1 car's length faster to getting to wherever everybody else is going. But I will say, the beautiful thing is, you don't have to wait in any line to check out another crazy Karen video on the left. Or if you want to skip the line and jump straight to the front to see my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll patiently wait in line. Next time I'll see you with some more stories.